chainsaw training is we give a basic course, but we don't do a good job of furthering education and training beyond that. There's kind of an expectation that we'll give you the basics and then you just grab onto somebody and somebody will train you. So if you're lucky enough, hopefully you work with somebody that knows chainsaw operations, or you yourself have a background and you move forward and learn. But if you're not, in the absence of that, it's a little bit of good luck and hope you survive. And I definitely had some of those, coming up where, I probably learned from mistakes, and it would have been better to have an instructor around sometimes, but it's just kind of the nature of it. And I do think we should probably change that and work on that more formal training thing. And that varies, around the country and with different agencies based on what they do and where they work and everything. But I think it's helped me a lot to be able to move around and work with a lot of different people since my first tree as a federal firefighter. I still can't believe that I was that dumb, but I was, and I think that's just fair to be honest with people. I've managed to be a C certifier for three or four federal agencies now as I've moved around between my jobs, and that's been a passion of mine, is to help keep others from making the same mistakes that I did. And I've learned a lot about being an instructor and tried to improve my own ability. I also think back to when I worked in the Southwest, I had a great assistant when I was on the engine, and he was a good saw operator and a smart guy and a hard worker and had a really big interest in it. And him and I spent a lot of time working together and getting him trained to the point to be a sea faller. And I made a couple mistakes in there as well. We were on one fire that sticks out in my mind, that he was still working on his C, and him and I were going around cutting hazard trees, and I was always pushing him because I knew he had it in him to be really good, but I wanted him to be good, to be safe, because after several years of working with him, he wasn't just a co-worker, he was kind of family. So I was probably a little hard on him in one tree in particular. On this one fire, he was pretty severely burned out snag, but it was in one of those places where it had to be dealt with for the safety of everybody else. So we had a good discussion before we went in to cut it about the safety. And what we determined, and because I wanted to make sure he was safe, is that he would run the saw, but I would be right there next to him, and my hand would be on his shoulder the entire time, and his job was to cut, and my eyes were never coming off that tree. So that was the plan. We went in there and did that, and as he was cutting, I felt some movement, and I started yelling at him to hurry up, make his cuts match, quit effing around, and I used some profanity. And then the tree finally came down as I'm just holding on to him, staring up the whole time, kind of barking orders at him. And then we get out, and what I didn't realize is that the ash pit was a little bit hotter where he was standing, the 2 feet closer than where I was standing. And actually he'd started to get kind of some burns on his feet. It wasn't anything super serious. It was just a little bit of redness and stuff. But that was one of those times where I was also pretty embarrassed.